Hello, everyone, and welcome to Moonride. This is Dave Johnson. I'm channeling Man in the Moon today. I want to talk a little bit about the Palestine-Israel conflict. I do not think that it is a good idea or useful to talk about facts in regard to the situation. All of us are feeling the same thing, like this is a problem that cannot be solved, perhaps in our lifetime. So, what are we going to do? And how can we help? How can we show these people sympathy? And I had some difficulty deciding how am I going to make this video. And I relied on a group called the V Group, which is a group of channelers that I work with, and I really appreciate their help because I was directed to make a video from the point of view of a Palestinian child and an Israeli child. I'm just going to ask Spirit to show up and show us how all the world is from their point of view. I am now seeing this world, and I've been indicated to me that it's from the point of view of an Israeli child. And I'm seeing much of the world of this child as they're sort of learning a bit about their religion and their world and their history and their culture. And I see a lot of interest in this child as they're learning these things. They're very open. They're just waiting to become. And I also want to point out that there's, really quite a beautiful feeling in this family. An older person is showing them about the tradition, and this older person is very much full of love. They're not doing this to indoctrinate someone. They're doing this because they want the child to learn. There's no animus here. Again, the child is reflecting on the older person is just full of love for them. And that is the world that they're experiencing. It's not a political relationship. It is just a relationship of a grandfather with quite a beard and just a very kind sort of love for them. And I don't think this grandfather goes far into the political, and this grandfather is able to see some perspective on humanity. It's not just from one view. This child is looking up to them, and they merit this. Then the child is looking at a place sort of underground, like it's like a bomb is hit. They're confused. They don't really understand what's going on here. And they're asking, hey, grandfather, isn't this wrong? It's not right to kill people, is it? And this grandparent that don't really know what to say. It's too complicated to explain to a child. And they're a little bit worried. More than a little worried. They're kind of in a fix. They don't quite know what the right thing is to do. And they're skeptical. They're skeptical of, their government as well as other governments. They don't really trust the government. And I'm speaking from the point of view of the elderly grandfather, the Jewish grandfather. And, it is really bringing something up. This child is really thinking about it. And even the grandfather is really thinking about what the right thing is to do. These people represent many people in Israel. They don't necessarily agree with what their government's doing. They don't think it's right that they would suffer, bombs and other things, of course not. But they don't know. They don't know what the right thing is to do. And again, the child is thinking about other children. They're able to put themselves in the position like, hey, look at the house that was here and the window that's blown out. That could be me. And the child is almost able to see the world war from a perspective of those who are in other place, and it does not make sense to this child. Why would you, if the rules you're following are that you don't kill others, how can you kill others? And this is very important, I think, because this gives me hope that there are some who will, in the next generation, approach this differently. The child is very much affected, and really, as I see this child growing up, they're able to be a bit more objective and less emotional. And this child is saying, this makes no sense to me. I don't feel different from another child of another religion. I don't think that there is a difference between the two of us. This child is like, I'm not buying into that story. No matter how many times as I am told, I'm not going to buy into the idea that one set of children is more important than another set of children. But they're just wondering, how could I convince others? Do you feel like this child could be a leader one day? And they bear no animus. Their feelings are those of fear, empathy, misunderstanding, but a tiny bit of resolve, a little bit of I'm not going to accept this as okay. Or at least, when I'm an adult, I'll do better. And it's interesting, this child is actually convincing the grandfather. So the grandfather doesn't know how to say it. The grandfather is like, as they're explaining this situation, they're having difficulty justifying some of the behaviors. And as they're explaining it, they're thinking it over and saying, there's a contradiction here. If the belief system that we live with says, don't kill, then how can we kill? If I have love for my grandchild, don't they have love for their grandchildren? The grandfather's basically a good person, right? And that seems to be the issue here. He doesn't want to harm those who are vulnerable. This grandparent is kind to women and doesn't think that women should be treated badly, which is again the contradiction. Oh, they treat their women with less power. That women have less power. But is it right? In that case, so if I care about women, I am, against them. But at the same time, I'm looking at the treatment of those women by my country as we are bombing them. There's just this kind of, it's a real difficulty for this elderly man. He is a good person and he doesn't know how to live in this place and be a good person. He can't, if he criticizes his own nation, people will jump all over him and disrespect him, and they'll get really angry. He will lose friends. At the same time, his conscience is serving him, and it's sort of like the old man has got an answer, and the answer is like, look, I'm secretly going to teach this kid how to be more peaceful than my generation is, and not even I'm not going to tell anyone. It's almost like the old man has got a premonition. This child will grow up and make a difference. And also, there isn't anything else he can do. He can't change their government. He's tried. He has tried talking to people, and sometimes he can calm them, but not always. The important thing is that this child respects this old person. They are really um, enamored of this elderly man and they want to be more like them. So I just want to put out the thanks for people on both sides that are teaching their children a better way instead of focusing on politics and revenge. They're teaching their kids that humans are humans, and the cultural tradition you come from is just there to teach you. It's not there to build a construction of power. So understand that, people are learning in the conflict, people are learning. Let's take a look from the Palestinian perspective. So first of all, there's this awareness of difference from the point of view of the child, which in this case is a girl, I think. She's showing long hair. And there's just sort of like a why do we live here and they live there? Or what's the difference between us and them? They look a little bit different, but why is it like that? Why is it separate? This child is just looking at the situation around them. They also have people in their lives who they love. Their parents are basically good people. And she's noticing, though, that the parents get really upset sometimes. And this father of hers he just feels emasculated all the time. He just feels humiliated all the time. He's doing his best to live up to something. He's doing his best to feed his family and be a good moral example and do the things that he believes is supposed to do. And he also doesn't necessarily believe in the politics of the things that are going around. He's just looking at this, and this is the father saying, I couldn't care less what they do. I just wanna have a normal life where my kids are fed and people are treated decently, and I can't make it. I can't survive. I can't grow things on my land if I'm being forced out, and the political situation keeps changing, and I'm always presumed to be a certain kind of person. No matter what I do, um I cannot exist in a peaceful way for the most part. That is, he can act peacefully, but he's still unable to really provide the needs of the family. And again, the parents are doing the best, but the mom kind of hides her tears. This is something that the girl has noticed, the Palestinian girl, that sometimes mom cries. Even if she puts on a certain face, she doesn't want us to know that she's been crying. She's always worried. She's always worried about what's going to happen. There's no stability. She doesn't know. Even every day is sort of a battle of, how can I wash my clothes? How can I wash my children's clothes? How can I even live up to what was provided for me as a child? She's just very ashamed in some ways. This is what the kid's noticing. It's just the whole life around her is full of these sort of stresses and people doing their best. And they're not political. They just don't care about that. They just want a normal life. She notices that there's some people who have a political agenda and that her parents are a little bit afraid of them. The father wants nothing to do with Moss. He doesn't want anything to do with violence. He doesn't want anything to do with anything except what keeps him and his family safe. He's extremely worried about the family. And she notices sometimes that her father blows up in anger. She doesn't understand why he's getting so angry, but she thinks it has something to do with the political situation. He gets angry, he regrets it afterwards, but he just can't help himself. He's so upset. And he's apologizing now, saying, I'm sorry I yelled. He's really doing his best. And she feels a little bit better, but she's also viewing the destruction. What's really affecting this child is that she knows that some people have given up. She knows, for example, that somebody has taken their own life. They cannot live in this way anymore. Somebody that she cared about. And that's what's upsetting her more, is that the life is so difficult that certain people are checking out of it by choice. They just cannot manage anymore. And it's not as, she's not necessarily responsible for putting food on the table. She just observes those who are and sees how they're reacting. When she sees an Israeli boy, she's just curious. She's no antagonism. She doesn't attach any politics to them. She sees how the parents are acting, the adults are acting differently. That's her parents and other people's parents. But she doesn't have anything but curiosity for the boy with the yarmulke. She wonders what it would be like to be that boy and wear that yarmulke. And of course, she's like looking at the faces of her parents and wondering if that's okay, if she's allowed to want to do that. Just out of curiosity, she's like, what would it be like if I went and stayed at their house for a week? And she notices that their house is nicer, right? That their house is better, that they have a better garden, just this kind of, she can see the distinction and she's wondering why. And she does perceive more freedom for women in general in Israel. And she would like to experience that to a degree. But her father isn't opposed to her having a degree of freedom. He would be happy with that. He would be happy if they were, in a better situation and she were better educated. But his leaders would not allow that. So he's stuck. The Palestinian father, is stuck between these two sets of people, one who's limiting his freedom, and another one who's, dangerous for him personally. He has to follow the rules that they have set, and he can't speak against them or they'll find him and kill him. It's a terrible position to be in for these Palestinian people who really have no power and have not taken either side. But she is also thinking in the future, when I am an adult, I'm going to change this. And she's observing, not speaking, but observing and thinking, how would I be able to do that? How could I influence this situation? And first of all, she's going to find a spouse that treats her with respect and gives her some degree of freedom, and a spouse that could be persuaded. She's definitely not going for the Hamas spouse. She's like, that guy's never gonna listen to me. But there are men there who will, and also, the more independent she gets, the more she feels like she could change the situation. She tells me now there's hope, as she puts a star in the sky, very beautiful. There's hope. There's hope for us because there is a future, because we children will one day grow up and we'll be sick of it. We'll be sick of this endless fighting. And yeah, it will take a long time and it won't be pleasant. But by the time that I am an older woman, maybe by the time I am 60, I will be able to say no and put my foot down and say, I'm not accepting this as a world. I am going to do what I can to change things. And she says that power will open up to me. It'll be a kind of an extraordinary thing, but I will be able to evolve and change. And I will be able to make things happen in my society. A little bit that she's saying, this is my path. And this is the path for all children of war, that their eyes are wide open and the truth of what's right and wrong is right in front of them. They don't need to look it up in a book. They can see it. And both of these children care about the people around them. And both of these children are able to draw on the sort of higher energies, powers to say, you know, these are religious traditions. You're supposed to teach us something. And if they teach us anything, they teach us to listen and to not be just reacting emotionally and doing what your, sort of rage tells you to do. Both of these children, through experience, are learning what they need to know to change the situation. And both of them bring hope. It will not necessarily happen for the next 50 years that this will get truly better. But these children seem to indicate that it will get better, that in 50 years they will have the power to say enough. And the only reason that's happening is because of the difficult experiences they are going through. And that will justify, that is, in the long run, these terrible, conflicts will teach them to be peaceful and give them the sort of force of will to make sure that peace happens. I'm now seeing the two children together, and they are friends. They hold hands, they look towards the light. It's kind of like they've both been sent to the planet to be those two agents of change. And it's very balanced, with the male and female, with the two different religions, with the hands that are held together. I hope all of you will join me in a moment and just focus on the hands of those children. Just spend a moment here and think of the love that is shared, the possibilities, the power that exists in peace. And remember, as we meditate and pray here, that all people can see the hands of those two children, that we can be examples of peace. We can do our best to sit in the uncomfortable place of not choosing a side. Thanks so much for watching.